So, today we step into a realm where intuition becomes language and energy becomes story. Joining us is Vandana Atara Noorah, a gifted healer whose journey began with a sacred blessing that awakened her spiritual gifts and opened the doorway to profound energetic insight. Together, we explore the art of reading the aura, how this subtle field holds memories, patterns, wounds, and wisdom waiting to be revealed. This conversation invites us to look beyond what the eyes can see and to understand the deeper truths we carry in our energetic body. So, welcome, Vandana. It's a pleasure to be hosting you.
Thank you so much, Archita. It's a pleasure to be here.
The pleasure is all mine. So, Vandana, when you read someone's aura, what are the first layers you naturally tune into, and what hidden information tends to reveal itself there?
Well, the first thing I do when I connect with a client, whether it's someone I worked with before or not, is I want to do a general scan, a general energy scan. So I'm not looking at a particular part of the aura necessarily, but the whole aura intact. And from there, I might settle on a particular angle of the aura if I notice that there may be a difference in that spot from the other parts of the aura. For example, if there's like a bend or a bump or maybe a hole, tear, or rip, then I'll be able to receive information about what may be happening depending on what part of the body that it's extended around. For example, if it's a crown chakra, if I see some like a different color or a different shape or something that looks different around a particular chakra, like the crown, then I'll maybe ask, what is going on? Like, do you have a lot on your mind, etc.? Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. Um, so things like that, if I see that the aura is bright, maybe around their heart chakra, or it looks very smooth and clean and open and expanded, then I'll know that, maybe they are happy with their love life or they're feeling at peace and things like that. So I take into consideration the colors, the shapes, the patterns and things like that, how far away it is from the body, how close the aura is from the body, etc. Because the aura is our shell. It's our protective shell that, every living being has, every sentient being has, including animals and plant kingdom. So, yeah, that's one of the ways that I'm able to really connect and receive unseen information that the client might not even be aware of. Sometimes, I mean, generally the aura, shape, color, form, um, depth, it will change depending on their mood, depending on, what they're going through. And sometimes the aura, like a particular auric imprint, can stay for a very long time unless it's resolved, unless like that's resolved. For example, a trauma imprint that gets attached or corded to our auric field, our energy field. And I can help people with that as well, if that is the case. And that's something that I psychically can see or just sense.
That's very interesting to know. But that makes me curious because I've talked to a lot of other aura readers before, and I've come to know that these auras they present themselves in different forms to different people. So how do they appear themselves to you? Like in what form do you see it? Is it a color or is it a shape? What exactly does it look like?
Yeah, as I just mentioned, it's probably a combination of all of those things, right? So, for example, when I look at your aura and I'm using my inner eye and my awareness, my inner awareness as well, I'm just kind of taking a snapshot of, what's happening for you, how you're feeling at this moment. Are you in your head instead of your heart too much and things like that? So, I mean, if we want to use you as an example, um, I'm not feeling any type of conflict, any type of inner conflict or worry, fear, or anxiety, or anything like that. It seems like there's almost like a magenta color that I see around you, almost like some reds, but not bright, very kind of mellow. So that tells me that if I'm seeing a lot of that color, which is more like, oh, I'm sorry, my headphone just fell out of my ear. A second. I was just talking about getting a new pair of headphones. Anyway, sorry. So if I'm seeing this magenta color, then to me it signifies like the heart, right? Because the heart usually is interpreted as either pink or green. So it feels like you're coming from an authentic place of truth and compassion, and that you're feeling pretty optimistic about your role in this life, like your soul purpose, like you're basically feeling fulfilled to me. So I see this not necessarily around your heart, but I'm noting the color that I see all around you, like almost like an arch over your head, like a rainbow. But that seems to be the defining color, that I'm seeing there. And it also seems like it's in back of you and more to the left of you. I just wanted to give you a sample of a aura reading demonstration because I know you're right. Everyone is different because everyone will telepathically interpret the information. They'll see, they'll feel, they'll have a certain feeling about it. Maybe they'll receive a message, they'll hear something. But the left side, which is where I see more definition, where I see more brightness, is the feminine, right? It's the receiving, it's the receptive energy, the intuitive energy, which tells me that you trust your intuition most of the time. Maybe not all of the time, but most of the time. And that means that you're in your divine feminine flow and that there's a balance. I don't see anything on the right side, like the energy is not as bright. Your aura is a little bit hidden from view. And that to me means that maybe there could be a deeper connection or closeness to the masculine. I'm talking about the divine masculine, but even your own inner masculine side, which is the side that keeps it's the part of you that needs to be a little bit maybe more balanced to feel more supported in life. So does that make sense so far?
Definitely, and I think that's a very accurate reading. Thank you for that. And yeah, that's also very fascinating. No, and that way of seeing brings so much nuance to the energetic field. It reminds us that our stories aren't just told through words, but through the subtle imprints that we carry. So, moving on, you have worked with trauma healing, soul retrieval, and ancestral energy. How do these different modalities communicate with you through the aura?
That's a great question. Sometimes when ancestors show up in my meditations, my meditative hypnotic journeys, I'll see, or my client or students might see, and I invite them to maybe see if they could, from the sides, their peripheral vision, maybe catch a glimpse of an imprint or a form or maybe a color or a light that in other words, so the shape or the form is not so defined of an ancestor. And I always want to invite people in to remember their divine wisdom that was passed on, their gifts that was passed on by their ancestors, and not focus on what was wrong, but what was right about and good about their ancestors, um, about this ancestral connection. So that's one way that I invite people in. And then you mentioned also soul retrieval. I mean, so everything has an aura, a shape, a color, or even maybe a sound. So if we think about retrieving a gift, taking back or reclaiming a part of our essence, a part of our soul, right? Sometimes it's not so obvious. People can't, they're not clairvoyant necessarily, but they can imagine. right? And they can envision um, like the outline of an object or a power tool or a symbol that maybe they used to work with, right, in another lifetime or timeline. So I always like invite in a lot of guided imagery, a lot of visualization, and really encourage people to use the power of their imagination. And a lot of my clients, they really want to open their third eye. They're like, oh, I just really want, I'm like, the question is why? I always put that question to them. Why do you feel so needy about this, so desperate? Like, what do you think is going to happen? Like, what is your wish if your eye was fully open? Because, when our Ajna chakra is fully open, we don't want it necessarily to be that open because we would not be ready. Our nervous systems would not be able to handle all of the things that are playing out behind the scenes that we can't see with the physical eye. So I always say, like, let's take this slowly. You want to see what will benefit you because it might be just too much information for you to process, for you to see, because we're not meant to see everything, obviously. So those are ways that I weave in to soul retrieval and ancestral medicine. And then you mentioned a third because I do many things, but mostly I work with how people can become their own loving parents. So I do a lot of inner child mentoring and coaching as well. So trauma leaves an imprint. So trauma is not about what's outside of what happens, what the event or events were. It's how it imprinted and attached to you or how it made you feel inside of you. What happened to you? What shifted in you? Were you once a very trusting, open person, um, who never questioned people's motivations? Like, were you, just, that very curious and compassionate child, and then something happened where it shut you down. So that also can affect the quality of your aura, how it looks, how open or how closed it made you, how it may have really harmed you and shut you down. And that, as we discussed, that will change how open or how closed your aura is, how close it is to your body. We want it to be like really, really big. So I always take people through these expansion exercises so people can really stretch outside of themselves so they don't feel so small and unworthy or so limited or held back or stuck. So that's one way what we can do, one method that we can use to open and expand our field so that we can connect with more possibilities, potentialities, and blessings, right? So that we're really connected instead of isolated. So that's another way that I always read people's aura before I start working with them because a lot of trauma goes unhealed, it's unresolved, it's unnoticed, and many people just have forgotten because they've forgotten, but the memory still lives on in their cells and their muscles and their DNA, but even in their aura. But not everybody has like is born with this gift. So it's something that I was born with that I never take for granted. But for people who claim that they can't see an aura, my students, like for example, will do some exercises like having them stand in front of a white wall, right? Or turning out the lights and just spotlighting the wall behind them. So, and they can practice even looking in the mirror and doing this on their own with a partner. But the thing is that it's hard to do it on yourself. But I always say, like, if you can't see an aura and you really want to, you want to see the colors and the sacred geometries, maybe the shapes. So imagine if you could. And whenever I say that, imagine if you could, because a lot of people go into fear and they shut down. They're like, oh, I can't see like you, but I really want to, but I think it's too late for me and I just don't have the gift. I wasn't born with this ability. But I always say, really? Is that true? First of all, because I always question their self doubt because most of the time it's not true. Maybe they tried once or twice and then they gave up. and they came to a wrong conclusion. So I always say, like, okay, so what if, can you imagine, like, just imagine that you could. And now close your eyes and open your eyes. And then, I have them practice on me, right? What do you see now? And then they'll go into all these details. I'm like, I thought you said you couldn't see an aura. And they're like, oh, I guess I could. So a lot of it has to do with like conclusions that we might have made at a very young age and also trauma. The more traumatized we are, the more we carry, hold, and store these trauma imprints, they accumulate and they shut us down and they shut down our gifts as well. So it really blocks our psychic, our telepathic abilities. So we want to get to the root of the issue with other modalities like Reiki and accelerated light healing. We want to really open people up so they're not as shut down or frozen.
It's really interesting to know how everything is just so interconnected. And from your explanation, what I can get out is that reading aura is pretty much similar to intuition. I feel like. So, like you said, that
Yes.
the people who have experienced more trauma in their life, they may be able to, read auras even if they believe that they cannot. So, definitely. And what I want to ask you now is that is there ever a moment where the aura shows a conflict between what someone believes about themselves and what their energy reveals?
Absolutely. There generally is, because we're very complex beings, right? We're a spirit in a human form, in a physical form. So there's always going to be some kind of disconnect. And usually the disconnect happened when a trauma played out, right? That's when the disconnect happened. That's when the block was formed. So we want to go behind the block, underneath the block. We want to just explore in a very gentle and safe way so people don't feel defensive about it. Um, but yeah, that it is all connected. It's all woven together and it all has to do with trust. It has to do with self-trust. And if somebody that raised us, who we were supposed to unconditionally trust and was supposed to unconditionally love us too, made us, or not necessarily that they wanted to, but we felt um, like they questioned us or they made us doubt our gifts, right? Or told us our gifts were bad or wrong and that we shouldn't be, so aware, or we shouldn't have, speak to angels or whatever it is. So that something happened, and maybe over many years in our childhood developmental years, right, where we were told like, don't do that because if you do that you're going to fall, don't play there, don't go out in the street yourself. And then we stop little by little trusting ourselves. So it's nobody's fault. This pattern starts with our ancestors and it passes down these inherited trauma imprints from generation to generation. So it is all about trust. But how can you trust if you couldn't trust the most important adults in your life growing up and they mirrored or they modeled um a parenting style that made you trust yourself, that made you give up or, ignore your gifts. Or maybe your parents told you you're too much. So you shut down because you didn't want to be too much. You wanted to be loved and approved of by your family members. Again, it didn't start these patterns of trust, of self doubt, of fear, of, low self esteem. It was passed on to us. So that's another kind of ancestral imprint. So these are all the kinds of work that I do for people to really open them up, to open their eyes and to get them to be curious about, what's happening underneath, like their desire to be psychic or to be clairvoyant or whatever. But yeah, it's an ability that needs to be polished and groomed and developed. And it doesn't happen overnight, which is probably a good thing. So that's what I love helping people to find their gifts and to share them, to express them, because many times we were held back, right? we were told our gifts were wrong and shameful instead of beautiful, you know? And so that's what I love to do when I work with clients is really open up their abilities so they can feel better about themselves. They can trust themselves and they could trust the world. And aura reading is just one way of reading energy. There are many, many more ways that I teach this. So thank you for asking.
That I think that what you do is it's truly amazing. And that contrast is fascinating because many people live in a gap between their inner truth and their conditioned identity. So your method seems to bridge that gap gently yet powerfully. So for people who want to understand their own aura, what signs of imbalance or blocks can they sense without formal training?
Well, the one thing that I didn't speak about yet is it's very important to practice what I call spiritual hygiene. So whether it's like brushing yourself off, rubbing your hands together to warm them up, to activate the healing channels, the chakras in our palms, right? And then just kind of brushing off your aura, but also like practicing using your hands to scan your energy field, like what's happening around you, and just noting, like, oh, okay, my heart feels warm, right? But then when I touch around or when I bring my hands around my head to feel where my aura begins and where it ends, it feels colder or it doesn't feel as flexible or, strong, right? So I'll have people practice that way as well. Um, yeah, can you say the question again? I just want to make sure I'm answering exactly what you asked me.
Yes, you are indeed on the right track. I mean, I just wanted to ask you for people who want to understand their aura, how can they,
Yes,
like,
yes.
what signs? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there are tons of, I have like some ebooks about this, aura repair. I have classes about this. How can you repair the aura? It's mostly done through visualization and through intention. And it's important to practice spiritual hygiene, which means cleaning and purifying your aura, your field. Because if you're an empath, which means that you're just a highly sensitive soul, and you feel others' energies and you take them on inside your body, you don't want to do that. You don't want to take in what doesn't belong to you. You want to give it back. You want to put it outside of you, remove it from inside and place it outside of you, and just brush it off you. So what I like to do is use sage or a copal, and I use a feather or a smudging fan, and I basically start on the top of my aura and I go all the way down into the sides and front, from above my head to below my toes, below the soles of my feet, from the front of me all the way to the back of me if you can reach, and just let that smoke kind of clear away any negative energy that you might have absorbed that's clinging and grasping to you by, energy drainers, I call them, or energy vampires, like people who are very needy and who just really drain your energy and leak your energy when you're around them. So, something like that is a practice that's very important. So, self care and self healing for your aura is very, very important. And sometimes you might not see yourself, but over time you will when you work with someone like me, whether it's me or somebody else. There are tons of books that you could read. There are tons of exercises and processes that you can practice. But it all has to do with keeping your energy pure and clean, watching what you say, the way that your words affect others, right? And also not taking anything personally and not, you know, taking on someone else's pain and fear or stress that doesn't belong to you. So, this is called spiritual discernment. And this will show up in your aura, it'll show up in your chakras, right? So, the more you do the inner work, the more aligned you will be with you, the more aligned you'll feel, and the more connected you will be to the truth of your divinity, right? So, it's a process and it doesn't happen overnight, but it also can be really fun and light. It doesn't have to be serious or difficult or complicated at all. So it's just getting used to observing you when you look in the mirror, observing the people around you, and then training your gaze. I also use candles in my practice, and I teach people how to gaze at candles because the only way to see your aura is to really gaze softly at it in your reflection. And I teach people how to do that when they work with me privately or in reception. So, yeah. And there are many ways to activate the ability to read auras. Now, there's not just one way, and I always customize it based on the experience people have, their confidence or lack of confidence. So this is going to look different for everybody that works with me. Yeah. It's not a one size fits all algorithm that I use because that wouldn't be fair and that wouldn't be of service to people. But what I want to do, what I love to do is to empower people. And this is just one way out of many to empower people's gifts.
Definitely. And definitely, I mean, everyone is different and it works differently for everyone. So yeah, but the methods that you shared, the advices that you gave, I think it was truly very helpful to me, and I think definitely as well as for our listeners as well. I'm sure that our listeners are now feeling more connected to this conversation and they would like to, like you mentioned, they would like to take some classes that you mentioned or read certain books, know how to cleanse their aura better. So, if they want to do that or connect with you personally, how can they do that? Could you share with our listeners?
Yeah, the best way to do it is to reach out to me on my website, vanzanalighthealing.com, or even better yet, just send me an email to vanzana@vanzanalighthealing.com. And this way I can send you my Calendly link and we can schedule a 30-minute consultation, a complimentary or a reading. And then I can make recommendations because I have so many programs on my website and I don't want anybody to get lost. So I would make the perfect recommendation that's customized just for you when you reach out to me. So that would be the best, I think, the most effective way of really me being able to meet your needs and give you what you've been looking for.
Great. So,
Because if you don't have a coach or a mentor or a teacher, it may feel overwhelming if you just try to figure it out on your own or buy a book. It might even be more confusing and you might wind up eventually just giving up or becoming disappointed or disillusioned because you're not getting the results you want fast enough. So that's why I think this would be the best way to contact me and see what happens from there. Yeah.
yes, I think consulting you would be deeply beneficial for the listeners, those who are interested. And so, yes, I'll have all the details on my show listing, and the listeners can then freely connect with you or book a reading with you. So, thank you, Vandana, for guiding us into the
Yeah.
unseen with such grace and clarity. For everyone listening, let this conversation be an invitation to reconnect with your own energy, to notice, to listen, and to honor what your aura has been holding for you. Your energetic field is not a mystery to fear, but a map that can lead you towards deeper healing and self discovery. Allow yourself the curiosity to explore it, and you might uncover truths that you have been waiting to rise.